Hey guys, it's Tekosaur, and in this video, we'll be comparing the pure performance of the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra with its Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 against its predecessor, the S23 Ultra, which packs Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. We'll be looking and analyze performance of different benchmarks and the stress test side by side, whether it's for CPU, GPU, and even some interesting AI benchmarks that will spotlight where the new Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 NPU shines. In addition to checking performance, we'll closely measure surface temperature after every single test in order to understand what to expect from each device when it comes to how it's going to cool itself down, especially with Samsung including this year a bigger vapor chamber by 92% on the S24 Ultra. So we got many apps to try out, starting from the top left: Passmark benchmark, GeekBench, AI benchmark, Burnout benchmark, GFX bench, AiTuTu, AnTuTu, and finally 3D Mark. They are all going to help us to get a comprehensive idea about the performance difference of those two awesome devices. I can't contain how excited I am to share with you guys the surprises I also found along the way. So grab your snack and relax, and let's get started first with AnTuTu benchmark. And here we are. The S24 Ultra scored 1,773,135, while the S23 Ultra got 1,474,728, which translates to about 17% difference. Now we'll uncover each section to see what we got here. So for CPU, we got a 15% difference, with the CPU multi-core score showing the biggest uplift among the three tests done here. For CPU mathematical operations and common algorithms, scores are higher on the S24 Ultra, but less significantly than the multi-core one, which appears to be the main factor contributing to the uplift in the CPU test section. Switching to the GPU one, we got a 13% difference with nothing remarkable. However, what surprised me the most is the memory one, showing a 29% difference even with both devices sharing the same memory configuration: LPDDR5X for RAM plus UFC4 for ROM. The S24 Ultra achieved a significant uplift here in tests such as the RAM bandwidth, which is 88,746 versus 65,283. As for the RAM latency, it's almost higher by 30,000 on the S24 Ultra. All of this is really worth mentioning given that faster memory can often lead to faster apps and games loadings and a lot of different tasks running on memory. Now getting to the ROM section, there's about 10,000 points uplift, while for write, 6,500, and the biggest difference found in the ROM random access, where we see almost double the score on the S24 Ultra. I quite did not expect data storages getting way higher scores than even both CPU and GPU. Looks like that even with the same memory setup, there is an improvement in utilizing those cutting-edge technologies much better than ever, thanks to the new Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. Now getting to the UX section, and here we mark the decent 10% uplift, with tests like data security, image processing, and video editing contributing to this difference. And now finally, looking at the power consumption, the S23 Ultra lost 5% of power joules, while the S24 Ultra lost 6%. As for the maximum temperature reached, it's 40.5 degrees for the S23 Ultra and 42.2 for the S24 Ultra. Now I also did AnTuTu storage test, and here we got the same performance boost. It's faster by 33% on the S24 Ultra, which all proves the fact that the new Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 is indeed better at unlocking the true potential of UFC 4 memory types. All that could benefit the whole system offering a superior experience. Now let's check the device's surface temperature, and here we will find the hotspot to be 47.7 degrees on the S23 Ultra, while 50.2 degrees for the S24 Ultra, about a 2.5 degrees change. However, as we can see, the S24 Ultra is able to localize the heat mostly around the chip area with a more confined shape than the S23 Ultra. It looks more like a rectangleish, if you know what I mean, while the S23 Ultra leaking out more generated heat across the device as shown here. Now let's move on to GeekBench, starting first with the CPU test. Here we find a 10% improvement for single core and 23% for multi-core. A fairly decent uplift indeed, and others have shared their GeekBench scores previously, and mine pretty much align with them. Checking temps, this time we have 38.1 degrees for the S23 Ultra and 39.8 degrees for the S24 Ultra. Now running GeekBench GPU using OpenCL API, we see a 39% score uplift. As for temps, 36.8 for S23 Ultra and 37.2 for S24 Ultra. While if we use Vulkan as the API for GPU, we see a whopping 47% uplift. For those short-durated benchmarks, temps are relatively lower on both devices. Let's now shift gears to Passmark for another overall system benchmark. The total system score shows a 19% difference, and going through section one by one, for the CPU, we got a 20% increase, with the find prime numbers test showing the highest improvement. Heading to memory test, we got a 16% change. Here I wanted to point out at the fact that the S24 Ultra memory latency being less than half of the S23 Ultra. For the disk 1 instead, we got a 24% difference, with the storage read being the most significant factor here. Now as for 2D graphics, the difference is quite slimmer, about 8%, with most results almost on par except for the image rendering test. Meanwhile, in the 3D graphics one, they are pretty much the same, and for a matter of fact, in this one specifically called Symbol Test, it's higher on the S23 Ultra, while for the S24 Ultra, the OpenGL test is higher. We could conclude it as they are quite on par more or less when it comes to Passmark 3D graphics benchmark. Now checking the heat image, we got 41.7 degrees for the S23 Ultra and 42.2 for the S24 Ultra. With the 3D graphics being quite similar here, I feel now it's the time to perform a dedicated GPU benchmark by using GFX Bench. Let's go for it. And here we are. After calculating all scores and averaging them, we can crown the S24 Ultra as it's leading by 12% on average. As for temperature, it ran hot on both due to how long the test usually lasts, about 30 minutes roughly. So far, we've been consistently seeing the trend of the S23 Ultra having lower hotspot temperature. But the S24 Ultra manages to trap heat more effectively in one area, as we have seen so far. And now we can proceed to 3D Mark, where we'll do a 20-loop stress test for all three of Wildlife, Wildlife Extreme, and Solar Bay. So let's get started first with the Wildlife 20-loop stress test. With the test done, we get here a 22% difference for the best loop score. However, the lowest loop score is actually better on the S23 Ultra, along with better stability. Now going through the loops, we see that after the first loop, the S24 Ultra already throttled down to get somewhere similar to the S23 Ultra as loops goes on. So it's like the performance of each loop goes down quite more aggressively as the stress goes on. The battery consumption we got is 10% drop for the S23 Ultra and 8% drop for the S24 Ultra. As for temperature, it reached up to 46 on the S23 Ultra and 43 on the S24 Ultra, with FPS ranging from 28 to 80 for the S23 Ultra and from 32 to 107 for the S24 Ultra. Checking the thermal image here, we see the S24 Ultra being a bit cooler in comparison to the S23 Ultra, which had a significantly hotter surface, even in the middle as you can see here. Now let's get over to Wildlife Extreme 20 loop stress test. Here this time we got a 24% difference in the best loop to the favor of the S24 Ultra, but still with worse stability percent. After about the third loop, the S24 Ultra throttled down to a similar performance level as the S23 Ultra. For battery consumption, here it's 10% for the S23 Ultra and 11% for the S24 Ultra. Now looking at the temperatures, here we see up to 46 for the S23 Ultra and 43 degrees for the S24 Ultra, with FPS ranging from 9 to 26 on the S23 Ultra, while from 11 to 33 on the S24 Ultra. Now finally, let's wrap up 3D Mark by trying out some ray tracing in Solar Bay 20 loop stress test. Now here's this time we got a 34% difference for the best loop still with lower stability for the S24 Ultra just like before. This time instead, it kept pushing harder, but eventually, at the 7th loop, it throttled down to a score bracket similar to the S23 Ultra. For battery consumption, it was 10% for the S23 Ultra, and the same goes for the S24 Ultra, with temperature maxing out at 46 for the S23 Ultra, meanwhile 44 for the S24 Ultra, with FPS ranging from 8 to 24 on the S23 Ultra and from 13 to 36 on the S24 Ultra. Now checking temperatures this time, we again see the S24 Ultra able to keep heat more contained, mostly around the chip area. This instance provides the clearest example of what I was trying to say. The vapor chamber on the S24 Ultra is doing its job to direct heat more effectively than on the S23 Ultra, where it's emitting out-generated heat outside the chip area, which will result in making the whole device hotter to touch. Now the time has come to put our NPUs under trial by doing our first AI benchmark using AiTuTu. And with the benchmark done, we get a 27% uplift, with everything from super resolution to style transfer to image classification and finally object detection excelling on the S24 Ultra. And even with a higher performance, looking at the heat image, we see the temperature a degree lower on the S24 Ultra. Another NPU related test we'll now run is by using AI benchmark. So let's go for it. Now here, according to the app, the S23 Ultra is nominated as the master of AI. But if that's not enough for you, the S24 Ultra is the die-hard. With a 21% difference, we see AI speed of 1092 for the S23 Ultra versus 1409 for the S24 Ultra, with both achieving the same accuracy percentage. Interestingly though, the CPU speed is faster on the S23 Ultra in this one. And here are the individual tests done with their related scores. As for temperature, this time the hotspot is higher on the S24 Ultra by 4 degrees. Now this time around, I would like to head back to AnTuTu and test out its stress test for 30 minutes to measure CPU performance over time. Now I'm not sure why, but the S24 Ultra started with 60% CPU use and kept going that way with a very short peak at 100%, while the S23 Ultra started at 100% and stayed there until it's thermally throttled. I'm not sure if it's an app bug not triggering the full performance state on the S24 Ultra. If you got it staying on 100% over a longer period, please let me know in the comments. I repeated mine 3 times and it's always the same result. But on the S23 Ultra at least, we saw the performance drop occurring roughly halfway, while the S24 Ultra maintained the same performance level with some dips here and there, and even clock speeds were on the middle side throughout the test. Surprisingly though, as for battery life, they both consumed about 13%. Now here for temperature, we got a significant difference, 48.7 for the S23 Ultra versus 43.3 for the S24 Ultra. Now the final stress test we have is a Burnout benchmark, which is going to stress out all three of CPU, GPU, and NPU. Let's hit there. So we got performance increase of roughly 8% for the compute score. But here it's also indicating that performance under throttling is lower by 3% on the S24 Ultra. And checking temperature this time, we got 51.5 for the S23 Ultra versus 53.7 for the S24 Ultra. This by far the most heavy test we have done, as temps are quite high on both. But as you can see in the middle, it's lower by 3 degrees on the S24 Ultra. I'm quite impressed by this cooling upgrade we have seen in this year. My takeaway from this will be that the S24 Ultra with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 is undoubtedly a leap in performance over its predecessor, the S23 Ultra. However, sustained performance drop is a big issue I've repeatedly seen. Over time, we are losing much more performance than on the S23 Ultra, all caused by the faster core clocks generating more heat. Now, even though the new vapor chamber is more efficient dissipating heat, it's still unable to tame the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 at its highest performance for long use sessions. But still, it was quite cool to see how the new vapor chamber targets heat much more efficiently on the S24 Ultra. So when you hold the device in areas other than the hotspot where the chip is located, it will feel a bit colder to touch. And that makes me wonder, if you are an S23 Ultra owner or someone undecided between buying the two, does think the higher performance of the S24 Ultra trigger you to get it after all? Or do you think that performance stability is a big issue enough for you to hold back? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. And the next thing I'm currently testing out is real gameplays comparisons between those two while checking temperatures, correspondingly with alternate game performance management mode on versus off. This way we'll see whether it's still a wise decision to turn it on for a more stable FPS in hardcore games like Genshin Impact, etc. So we'll find out all of that in the next video, so make sure to subscribe to be updated once it's out. I really want to thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and found it useful, please give it a like and subscribe, and don't forget to activate the bell icon notification to be updated on all my latest content. Thanks for watching and see you on the next one.